Hello, people. Let me. What was I doing? That's what I was saying. I was pinning that. Okay. And then we are on Job 8. You want to say hi, Shadow? Come say hi. This is Shadow. Say hi. Say hi. Dawn says, I have my tea and my knitting. I'm ready to learn something. Hey, Sandy. Okay, so let's do some Job. Is this the best? Which one's better? Which one do you guys like better? I think this is probably the best. Okay. Vaya'an Bildad Hashuchi Vayomer. So, and answered Bildad the Shuhite. I don't know what Shuhites are. And he said, Ad an tamalel ele. That's a weird way of putting it. How long are you going to whisper such things? Veruach kabir imrei ficha. And how long shall the words of thy mouth be like a strong wind? Ha'el ya'avet mishpat ve'im shakai ya'avet tzedek. Does God pervert judgment, or does the Almighty pervert justice? Im banecha chatu'u lo v'yeshalchem beyad pish'am. If your children have sinned against him, he has cast them out for their transgressions. Im ata teshacher el ve'el shaddai titchanan. If thou wilt seek to God, teshacher seek, okay, and make thy supplication to the Almighty. Im zach v'yashar ata, if thou be pure and upright. Ki ata ya'ir alecha, surely now he will rouse himself to you. Aha. So this is ata, is with an ayin, now, and ya'ir from ur, to wake up. Veshilam nevat tzidkecha, and make the habitation of thy righteousness prosperous. So neve is an abode, a place of living, and he will pay you or make whole the abode of your righteousness. V'haya reshitcha mitza'ar, though thy beginning was small, mitza'ar, from pain. Va'acharitcha yiske me'od, yet thy end will be very great. So they're actually translating the language of in the Hebrew, it's a language of narrowness and highness. Yiskeh means to reach, I believe. Let's see. Yiskeh. That's with a shin. Segeh, to grow, increase. Um, Kol sha'alna ki sha'alna. Lador rishon v'chonen lecheker avotam. For inquire, I pray thee, ki sha'alna, okay, of the former age, and attend assiduously, v'chonen lecheker, okay, attend this, okay, to what their fathers now have sought out is they're reading into that. Ki tamol anachnu velo neda, for we are but of yesterday. Really? Tamol? I mean, etmol is yesterday. Ki tamol anachnu velo neda, and know nothing. Ki tzel yamenu ale aretz, because our days upon earth are a shadow. Kitzel yamenu ale aretz. Yeah, tzel means, yeah, shadow. Sandy says, why different than house? Not sure what you mean. What? Oh, neve. How is neve different than a house? Well, a neve is, let's see, nave, abode, habitation, abode of shepherds or flocks, pasture. Nava also means to beautify. Yeah, it usually gets translated as abode. There's a pasture or a meadow. Neve Yerushalayim is a area, or is it a yeshiva? Yeah, when they're naming things in Jerusalem, they they use the word neve. Yeah, bite. I mean, doesn't neve has a meaning of something beautiful and I guess comfortable, and I didn't realize what should I call it, having to do with meadows. Okay, Halohem yorucha, will they not teach thee? Yomru lach, and they will say to you, libam yotziu milim, and utter words out of their heart. I mean, yeah. They'll bring out words from their hearts. Hayig egome, can the rush shoot out below bitza? So gome, I guess, is a rush. Rush reed papyrus. And bitza means mud, swamp, marsh. Yiske ahu bli mayim, can the reed, I guess ahu is a reed, will it grow without water? Odenu be'ibo lo yikatef v'lifnei kol chatzir yivash. While it is yet in its greenness, odenu be'ivo, so I guess eve, it means greenness. Yeah, that's not gonna help. Lo yikatef, and not cut down. V'lifnei kol chatzir yivash. It withers before any other verb. Chatzir is something that is my brain should start working. That is reaped. You reap what you sow. V'lifnei kol chatzir yivash, and it gets dry before anything else. Okay. Ken orchot kol shochei el. Such is the ways of everyone who forgets God. V'tikvat chanef toved. So chanef they're translating as hypocrite, to be profaned, corrupt, godless, hypocrite, irreligious. So the hope of the chanef, however you want to translate chanef, heathen, apostate, will be destroyed. Asher yakot kislo, whose hope shall be cut off. Okay, so kesel is hope. Ubeit akavish mivtacho. Akavish is a spider. Okay. Yisha'en al beito, he shall lean upon his house, velo ya'amod, and will not be able to stand. Yahazik bo velo yakum, he will grab onto it and will not endure, they translate. Ratovhu, he is green. Ratov, I guess means unripe, I think. Moist, juicy, and fresh. A hapax legomenon in the Bible, occurring Job 8:16. Lifnei shamesh, before the sun. Va'al ganato yonakto tetzeh, and his branch shoots forth over his garden wall. Okay. Al gal shorashav yesubahu beit avanim yechezeh. His roots are wrapped about the stone heap. So gal is a stone. Yesubahu means to get caught up in. Gal shorashav. Beit avanim yechazu. He selects for himself a place of stones. Yechezeh, sorry. Yechezeh. Chozeh means to envision. Im yaval enu mimkomo, but if you destroy him from his place, v'chichesh bo lo reiticha, then it shall deny him, saying, I have not seen thee. Okay. Hen hu mesos darko. Behold, this is the joy of his way. Uma'afar acher yitzmachu. And out of the earth shall others spring. Hen el lo yim'as tam. Behold, God will not cast away an innocent man. V'lo yachzik beyad mereim, nor will he uphold evildoers. Ad yamales chok picha. He will not yet fill thy mouth with laughing. Usfatecha trua, and thy lips with rejoicing. I mean, I don't know why they're translating it as he will yet fill. Ad just means until, and then all of these things. Son echa yilbashu boshet. They who hate thee shall be clothed with shame. Yes. First one, I was like, yeah, okay. The ohel reshaim einenu, and the tent of the wicked shall be no more. Okay. So let's see what the Malbim has to say. You can't tell me there's no Malbim on here. Sandy! Long time no see. That doesn't look like your normal background. Did you?
Yeah. Well, usually I sit back.
Oh, right. There's the painting. I was wondering where that painting was. Okay.
It's still there. Which way?
It is still there.
Yeah, it's not gone.
You painted that yourself, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, let's
I
open
keep
it.
thinking one day I will retire and paint more things.
One day I will retire and paint my first things. One day.
Good.
But not today. Have you been?
Good is the short answer. I just spent a week and a bit moving an entire infants department and some of the fixtures, 1,000 plus tiny little outfits and more. So I hurt quite a bit before I had my day off yesterday. But other than that, I'm good.
How are the kids?
Good, I think. Joshua keeps sending me pictures of his lizard, and I haven't seen Jacob this week because I've been working too much, and on my day off I slept. Well, actually, I went and had my eyes checked yesterday too. So
sleeping is good. I'm in favor of sleeping. Okay. Peticha lema'aneh haravi'it ma'aneh Bildad. So this is the fourth oration, Bildad's first speech.
I have interrupted having your Safaria on screen.
Oh, I should put the Safaria on screen. There we go. Hamit vakeach hashuchi bachar lo shita acheret. So the Shuhite debater took a different point of view. Asher kefi devarav yirsha b'kabbalah ma'avotav. That from what he says, I guess in verse 8, he got from his forefathers. Ke'Eliphaz, like Eliphaz, ya'amin gam hu b'hashgaha chofshiyut habechira. So he also believes in divine providence and free will. Kamohu, gam hu yiten ketef soreret el da'at ha'atztaninim. And therefore he is trying to help undo the words of the astrologers. V'la'asher gam Iyov b'manehu le'Eliphaz, and just as Job, in his answer to Eliphaz, hechrish Drushim ele did not listen to these explanations. לכן הסתפק גם הוא במופת אחד אשר העמיד נגד הכופר בהשגחה. Therefore, he, I guess he means the Shuhite, doubts with one wonder, that which someone who denies hashgacha would say. Bama sha'amar ha'el ya'avet mishpat. So he's like, are you trying to tell me that God would pervert justice? Ubi'ur zot harayahu ki tanai ha'elokut sheyimtza'u bo kol hashlemut. So this is his proof, right? Because he says, since it's God, right? And God is perfect, yisolku mimenu kol hachesronot, and since you cannot assign any sort of lacking to God, vezot sheyatza meito avel umishpat meukal hu chisaron. And so to say that God would pervert justice, that would be to ascribe a lacking to him. V'ra'ui shelo yimtza bo. And that's not something that should happen. Let me see if I translated it the way he did. Providence, when he asks, what I mean, you divine, no perfection should be wanting, nor now it would certainly be a shortcoming to emanate from him, and so such wrongs could not originate in him.
I forget why, but I've seen that where it's bolded before.
It bolds the actual so that's his translation of the actual verse. So it includes, so when it says, so this is part of what makes the Malbim's, so the translation that they have of the Malbim on here is this book by this gentleman, Jeremy Pfeffer, and Jess actually bought the book. But so what he actually ended up having to do was retranslate the book according to the Malbim, because really what the Malbim does is he intersperses his explanations with the actual words that are in Job.
That's right. I remember hearing why, but yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah, so like sometimes he's actually just like writing his explanation in between the words as he's explaining. Yeah. Okay. Vezot yodeh gam ba'al hariv. And this is something that even someone who disagrees would have to accept. V'gam Iyov hiniach hazeh liyasod asher alav bana rayotav. And similarly, even Job had put his, like, this is a fundamental that he built his reasoning upon. Rak she'Iyov lakach et hadavarim beheshkef al mishpat ha'ishi. So, but Job rather took the words and he said, no, it's from a man's side, v'chol amar, and so he said, "Sheyaseh hakel avel hu davar nimna bechuko." And so he said, when God makes some sort of perversion, it's in that God's will was not being done. ההנהגה האישית הנגלית אינו מסודרת לפי המשפט וצדק. Because what human beings do are not set up according to justice and truth. באשר ראינו כי היא לא תבחין בין צדק לרשע. Okay, somebody needs to learn to be a better person. Okay. באשר ראינו כי היא לא תבחין בין צדק לרשע, כי הכל כאשר לכל כתוב כחוטא נתונים המה תחת מקרה הזמן והפוכותיו. So regardless of whether a person is good or bad, things that happen in the world, they just happen according to time and how it passes. ואחר שזה שהגיע רע לצדיק, בחינם הוא evil. And the fact that someone who's righteous, bad things happen to him, that is a perversion. No problem, I took care of it, done. אם כן, נמנע שתהיה הנהגה זאת מאת השם. Therefore, so Job's whole thing is that God can't be running the world because we see bad things happen to good people. So it's just something that happens. כי חלילה להקל מרשע ושקי מעוול. Right? So to say that evil comes from God or from the Almighty, perversion. ולכן החליט כי ההנהגה הזאת יוצאת ממושל עיוור וסתום, that there's a governance in the world that is blind and closed, סתום עיניים, closed eyes. שהיא המערכה, which means really just the way of the world. אשר היא לא תבחין בין עובד Elokim la'asher lo avado, that doesn't tell the difference between somebody who's serving God and doesn't serve God. However, Bildad hichriya hahefech mitzad hamishpat harashii haklali. But Bildad is going to say, no, it's the other way. Like, they both agree that it would be wrong for, like, you can't say God causes perversions of justice, but he's saying no. It's a comes in a different way. V'cho ya'amar ha'evel ra'oi sheyesulak ma'et Hashem ya'an hiyato chisaron. Therefore, he starts off by saying that perversion of justice isn't something that you could say comes from God, because that would be a lacking within God. לכן ראוי לייחס לו היכולת המוחלט אחר, היותו שלמות. So, and it's better to ascribe to God the capacity, hamuchlat, a set capacity which is being complete. והנה שנאמר שהשם מסר הנהגת העולם אל מושל עיוור. And so to say that God gave over the ruling of the world to a blind governor, הבלתי מבחין בין טוב לרע, who can't distinguish between good and bad, גם אם נצדיק בזה את הדברים הפרטיים הנמשכים מרוע הסדר, right? Even if we were right that this is how individual things happen, ושנאמר כי לא מאת השם יצאו, רק משרי המערכה, in that we're saying that it's not coming from God, but rather these ministers of the constellations, המנהיגים את ההנהגה האישית, which are the ones that rule over human behavior, בכל זאת לא נוכל להצדיק אותו מצד המשפט הראשי. That's still not going to make God be just. כי נשאל, because then we could ask, הלא זה בעצמו איבל מאיתו? Isn't this a sort of perversion from him? מה שמסר את ההנהגה ביד המערכה, that he created the world in this way, ולא נוכל להשיג על זה רק אחת משתי אלה. And the only, this would have to be one of two things. או שנאמר שאין לו יכולת לעשות משפט להנהיג ההנהגה האישית. We have to say either that God doesn't have the capacity to run things according to justice, וזה אי אפשר, and you can't say that, כי מתנאי האלוקות שימצא לו יכולת המוחלט, because God is omnipotent, ועל זה אמר, הקל, היינו, הבעל יכולת והתקיף, איך יעוות משפט. So that's how he understands this sentence, right? How does God, so this word for God is talking about being powerful, right? Saying how, so that's how he understands this question. How does the powerful pervert justice? Or the second one, שנאמר שעוזב את השפלים ואינו רוצה להשגיח בם, or we're going to say he can, but he doesn't care, על צד המיאוס או הקנאה, either because he finds it disgusting or he's jealous, כפי החלוקה אשר בפי המורה בט"ז משלישי. So apparently this is in that book, Guide for the Perplexed, part 3, chapter 16. וזה נגד הצדק, and that's still something that's against justice. ועל זה אמר, ואם שקי יעוות צדק, will, and does the Almighty pervert justice? וזה מופת חותך, and this is a clear sign, שההנהגה האישית יוצאת מהשגחתו, that ultimately people's actions are the result of God's providence. ושרואה הסדר הנדמה לנו מיסרי הצדיקים, and that the evil within the arrangement that we see from righteous people suffering, hu ta'ut etzlenu, that's our mistake. Ki hakol mesudar me'ito, because God does create everything. Betzedek u'mishpat, righteously and justly. Ki hu kel emunah ve'ein avel, because he is the God of faith and there is no perversion. Amnon, however, Madua yavi Hashem ra'ot al hatzadik. Why does God allow evil things to happen to a righteous person? Bezen natal mesila acheret. Now he's going to explain in a different path. Ki leshitato yavi Hashem machovim al hatzadik bli shum chet kodem. That God causes people who are righteous to suffer even before they have done a sin, rak kedei lehativo ba'achrito, in order to cause good for him in the end. V'sheyashlim lo chelef hara'a tov kiflaim, and that he's going to receive in twice as much good as the bad which befalls him. Be'inyan shaharaot yavo al derech hatmura v'hachiluf, right? In the way that these evil things happen through exchanges and changes, sha'al yedei hara hahove yasig tov ba'atid, that through the bad things that happen now, there's going to be good that happens in the future. Vela asher kemurgal befi hachachamim, and like that which wise men say, yitameh ba'adam b'harbe inyanim el hatzemach, that they compare human beings in many ways to vegetation. Mevaer ki ken titnaheg hateva al hatzmachim leminehem. He clarifies that that's the way of nature with the different forms of vegetation. Hatzemach hanatuya b'makom salayim tzia, that what a plant that is planted in a place of dry stones, v'shimema yakrehu ba'al hagan mimkomo, that when the gardener takes him out of its place, v'shatalhehu v'yishatlehu b'makom ra'anan v'shemen, that he puts it into a more rich and good place. Umavuar sha'akira zot eina l'ra'ah, right? That this uprooting of the plant isn't something that's bad. Rak letova lama'an yeta'ehu shorek, because he's going to then plant him in a different place that's even better. Ulam lo kol esev mesugal lezeh, but not every plant has such good fortune. Ki hatzmachim hagedilim al rov mayim halachim v'retuvim betiv'am lo yishrishu shorshehem acharei akiratam, because not all plants, after they've set a root, if it's not within their nature that if you were to uproot them and put them in somewhere else, they would again be able to establish roots. Aval la'umad zeh chen hem lifnei kol chatzir yivashu, but they, after being removed, would become dry. So actually, okay, so this is a very different way of translating the verses we were looking at.
This doesn't sound very familiar, and yet it has elements of parables and things that I've read. So as to how and why things happen.
The words, I mean, he is using the same words but in different ways. Like he's explaining what we were reading, but it's nothing I would have imagined by myself. V'zeh ha'inyan ba'atzmo yihyeh b'hanhagat ha'adam, and similarly to the way of human beings. Sha'rasha hirgil b'tanugim u'motorot lo yakrenu mimkomo rak yikachehu meha'olam kodem zmano. because when you're talking about an evil person who is used to all kinds of pleasantries and excesses, right? That you don't move him from one place to another. Rather, that God removes him from the world completely, like before he shortens his life. V'tov lo yihyeh l'rasha v'lo yarich yamim, that he's not going to live long and have good. Aval hatzadik yitaker lifamim mimkomo v'yivaresh min hasav v'gufo yityaser. But a righteous person sometimes is removed from his place, and he's taken away from his things, and his body suffers. V'zeh letovato, and this is for his improvement. Shitlo mekom ne'eman, to put him in a better place. V'od yinov beseva yir'eh zera yarich yamim v'chafetz Hashem biyado yatzliach. Right, that all the good things that in those verses are described would happen to him. And here are the verses: Isaiah 22:23, Psalms 92:15, and Isaiah 53:10. V'lachen yatzahu l'chzik b'ma'uzo l'ftoach b'Hashem v'alav yitchanan. Therefore, he tells him to hold on to God and to depend upon Him and pray to Him. Ki az tachat yisurav yiron chelko, that because of his suffering, he'll have better. V'achrito yiskeh me'od, and there will be a great end to things for him. Ad an tamalel ele, how long will you say such things? L'daber divrei ruach, to speak words of wind. Uma shetachlit shehashem masar et hanaga biyad hamarechet habilti mavchenet bein tov l'ra ani mashiv lacha. So I'm going to answer you in to that which you were saying, that everything's given over to the constellations. Hakel ya'avet mishpat halo yihyeh zeh avel b'chok hakel o chisron yicholet u'kamo shehitpa'er b'peticha, like we explained in the beginning. Amnam tzaddik v'yashar Hashem v'ein avel ki, but no, God is righteous, because im banecha chat'u lo, if your sons sinned against them, sha'al banecha lo uchal lomar sheniti asru al derech hatmura kedei la'arbot scharam, because we can't say that for your kids this was the case, that he made them suffer so that they would be able to receive better. Achar shehem metu v'ne'evadu, because they've been killed and they're gone. Aval alehem lo tuchal lachlit shelo chatu, but you can't say that they didn't sin. Ubavadai chatu lo, and they must have sinned against God. K'mo shechatu ba'atzmo ulai chatu banai, like it's that, like he himself said, maybe my children sinned. V'lachen v'yishachem b'yad pish'am. Therefore, you have to say that they were sent because of their sins. Ki shilcham b'yad hapesha atzmo, because that their being sent away is through the sin itself. Ki be'et achlu v'shatu sha'az pishu uberchu elokim bilvavam, because they were eating and drinking, and therefore they must have sinned in cursing God in their hearts. Nafal alehem habayit vametu, and that's why the house fell down and they died. V'zeh midah keneged midah, and that is measure for measure. Kefi hayushar hayosher v'hatzedek, the way it should be and justly. Aval hanogel lach, but that which comes to you, she'ata to'en ki tzaddik ata, that you're telling me that you're righteous, ani mashiv lacha, I would answer you, im ata tishchar el v'titpalel lefanav, as if you turn towards God, im ha'emet kedvarecha ki zach v'yashar ata, if it's true that you're saying what you're saying, that you're pure and righteous, az yitbarer lecha ki ata, then it will become clear to you that now ma shehevi alecha yesurim eina mitzad chitzpo o mitzad hastarat panim v'siluk hashkacha. This isn't coming to you because he's mad or he's hiding or he's not paying attention. Rak behefech. But no, it's the other way around. Ki ata al yedei ha'isurim ya'ir alecha. But rather, through these sufferings, God is going to turn towards you. Ha'yisurim ba'asmam yashlim et navat tzidgecha. And through these sufferings, you're going to get to the abode of your righteousness. L'chonen et noch b'shlemut gadol k'ra'ui l'cha lefi tzidkatecha ufri ha'yisurim halalu yihyeh ki v'haya reshitcha mitza'ar. And all of this is going to be through, and again, he's reading into the words, the beginning is from tsa'ar, from being in pain. Shayedei ken acharitcha yiskeh me'od, because through that you will end up with great things. Shayisurim shahavi alecha belochet yihyeh kedei lehativcha ba'achrit v'cholonen ulkonen otcha l'shem ulitferet. Right. So in the end, it's actually going to be very good for you. Kisha alna. For now, please ask. Hodiu shishata zot shiyisurei hatzadik hem al derech hatmura laharbot kovodo ba'achrito. And so he tells him, now that you know what he's explaining, that right, these bad things happen so that greater things could come. Kabbalah beKabbalah midor rishon. This is something that we've received from the earliest generations. Shehem kiblu ma'avotehem, because this is something we got from our fathers. Asher chakru ayinu b'devar zeh, who looked into this. Ki tamol anachnu, she'anachnu efshar shena'amod al emitat hadavar l'da'at oto al yedei habechina v'hanisayon shehabechina. So from yesterday he's saying it's impossible that we would be able to really understand the things truly and to test them. Lo tihyeh ela berobot yamim v'rab zman. That the only way to know is through actually a long time, right? Not a short time. V'anachnu zeh mekurav noladnu, and we've only recently been born. V'yamenu domim ketzel hacholef mehera, and our days are like a shadow which moves very fast. Ve'i efshar ladat hakol bazman katzar kazeh. You can't know these things from such a short time. Rak tzrichim anu lismoch al hakabbalah hanimshechet midor dor. But rather, we have to pay attention to that which we've received from many generations. Asher hem bachanu hadvarim berabot hayamim hakorot v'lachen. So like looking at from a historical perspective, right, long time. Halo hem yorucha yomrulach, right? How wouldn't they teach you? Et hamakubal etzlam, that which they understand. V'chutz mize od milibam yatzu milim, they'll bring words from their heart. Laharot lacha b'mashal miteva hatzmachim, that they will explain to you as an allegory to plants. Hayiga haguma v'habitza lo yigadlu below adama lacha. So reeds can't grow except in wet ground. V'retuva v'al lichluchit shel mayim mitzad lichluchatam urakutam v'hena be'et asher odenu be'ibo. So they need it, especially when they're still in their greenness. Ba'od lo nas licha, that the wetness has not left. Lo yiktaf ki hu chazak me'od, u'mikol makom rov shefa halichut v'hamaimuniyot asher bo ze atzmo hu gorem shefnei kol chatzir yivesh. But even so he's saying, like, reeds which grow fast, in their earliness, right? Because they need that wetness, they also dry faster. Ki yefasek yenikat halichut, when they don't have the water, b'shefa o behishtanut chom, right? Either that there isn't so much water, or it's become hotter in the summers, hakayitz, yivashu v'ikalu, that they dry up and they're destroyed. Masha ein ken hachatzir, which is not true of things that are reaped, I think. She'ena tzarich lechut kol kach yitkayem zman aruch yoter. So I think he's explaining the differences between a plant that's still green, right? It grows based on it being wet, mm-hmm. But an older plant, it doesn't dry as fast, but it also doesn't grow according to, like, the rain. I think that's what he's explaining. Because this is the way of everyone who forgets God. Because they're like reeds. That they grow with pleasures and excesses. Vereshitam tzalcha limtzo ken mishalot einayim, and their heads turn to look at those things which their eyes draw them to. V'hem domim gam bezeh ke'acho, and in a similar way, they're like reeds, I guess. Ki tikvat chanaf ta'avad, because the hope of a profaner is destroyed. Velo tatmid hatzlachatal zman rav, but they're not going to be very successful. Vehu ki ba'et asher yikot v'ikaret kislo mavtacho asher hu domeh kebeit achvish, right? Because it's like the house of a spider, right? Be'et yitmotet ma'at velo yimtza chayat yado, az af be'et asher yish'an el beito mikol makom lo ya'amod. I mean, he's reading it within the words, and yeah. Mikol makom lo ya'amod, it's not going to be able to stand. רוצה לומר לא לבד שלא יתקיים בעת שעקרוהו מביתו. It's not just that he's going to be uprooted from his house. כאשר יאמר אחר כך יסר צדקים שדומים כעץ ששותלים אותו ממקומו למקומו אחר. Like he's going to say regarding righteous people that it's possible to move them from one place to the another. כי הגומה והחול לא יגדלו אם ימושו ממקום גדולם וינטעו שננית. Because reeds, if you try to uproot them and put them in a different place, they're not going to grow. רק אף שישען על ביתו, rather it has to lean on its house. בכל זה לא יעמוד. Still, it's not able to stay. ואף שירצה להחזיק בביתו בכל עוז, בכל זה לא יקום. Even though it tries to stay there in every way possible, it's not going to be able to last. כתוב, לא כן הצמח אשר אינו צריך אל מים רבים ולחות הרבה. It's not the same for a plant that doesn't need lots of water and wetness. רק הוא רטוב ורענן אם יעמוד לפני השמש. But rather it's supple if there's sun. ולא תזיק לו היבשת הבא על ידי השמש. It's not going to get hurt by the sun. וגם על גנתו יונקתו תצא. And in its garden, its branches will go out. שאינו צריך לבצע במקום לך רק הוא גדל בכל גנה שתהיה. It's able to grow whichever garden that it's in. הנה הצמח ההוא בעת אשר על גל שורשיו יסובכו. בעת ששורשיו יסובכו זה בזה, ולא יוכלו להתפשט בעבור גל של אבנים. That even when its roots are stuck within each other because there's stones around it, שנמצא אצל שורשם, או שלא יכול להתפשט בעבור כי בית אבנים יחזה, or that it can't go far because it's a house of stone is what it sees. שגבולו קרוב אל בית אבנים. This is not how we translated this verse. ואבני הבית שהם בגבולו מעכבים בעד שורשו שלא יתפשטו. אז אם יבלענו בעל הגינה, if he destroy, they translated it before as destroy, but now he's, bolea means to swallow, but he's translating it as uproot it, to take it up. ויקרנו ממקומו עד שמקום שגדל שם יחש בו לאמור לא ראיתיך, until the place where it was would forget it and say would say I haven't seen you. רוצה לומר שעוקרו משם מכל וכל, that he's completely uprooted it. הן העקירה הזאת הוא משום דרכו. That's misos darko. That's actually causing happiness in his way. Yesamach al ha'akira, he will be happy that it was uprooted. Hazot. Va'al haderech movilim oto mukomo lamakom acher, the way that he's being moved from one place to another. Kima afar acher, because from a different dust. Asher ein sham avanim v'sharshim, that it doesn't have rocks and roots. Misham yitzmachu, From there, it will grow, shorshav, bein makav, without anything stopping it. ונמצא שהעקירה זאת היה לטובתו, היא לטובתו. We see that being uprooted is actually something good for him. וזה משל אל הצדיק, אשר לא הורגל במותרות. And this is a good analogy for a righteous person who is not accustomed to excesses. והוא רטוב ועומד בצדקו, that he is supple and stands in his ways, אף לפני השמש, even before the sun. כי הוא מוכן לעמוד בניסיון, because he's able to withstand testing. כשרוצה השם לרומם קרנו, and when God wants to uplift him, להאיר נראו ורואה כי במקום ובמדרגה שהוא נטוע עתה, יש לו מונעים ומקובעים ומעלותו. When God sees that where he is, it keeps him from growing and restrains him לגדולה המוכנת לפניו, from the greatness that is available to him. אז יעקרנו Hashem, therefore God will uproot him. ממקומו יחריב נאווהו, that God will destroy that abode. ויהרוס ביתו, and raise his house. וגם עמודי גבייתו ירפפו. I don't know what he's quoting, but like things will not be nice. וזה אך לטובתו, שעל ידי כן יתאהו השם מחדש במקום יותר מובחר. That God is then going to plant him in a place that's even better. וישמחו לנס עמים, and he shall be as a flag to the peoples. במקום ומדרגה, in his place, in his degree, אשר bo yitpashtu shorshav, that there he's going to have his roots. Yelachu yonikato tav v'yihye kazait hodo, kazit hodo. That there it's going to be glorious. V'kol zehu letovato v'etzlachato, and all of this is for his benefit and his success. Ata mevaer et ha ole mishitato. Then he goes on to say what we understand from this opinion of his. Ki hen el lo yimas tam, that God does not turn away the whole person. It's impossible that a righteous person would suffer that causes bad things for him. V'gam lo yachzik b'yad mereim, and bad things will not be able to hold on to him. V'yefshar she'atzlacha harasha yihye letovato. It's not possible that evil people would get anything from what they do. Rak ki ad sheyagia ha'et asher yimales schok picha. Right, and then so this is the language that in Psalms talks about the future coming, really the world to come and the coming of the Messiah. So he's saying, and he's matching it up. Shetismach al ha'yisurim shezavalat ki tekabel tov tamuratam. You're going to get good for all the bad things that happen. Ad ha'et ha'i betoch kach sonecha Yelbashu Boshet, and those who hate you will wear clothing of shame. Ki ohel rashaim tachrav, because the tent of the evil will be destroyed. Va'az tifrach katamar avdan risham tir'eh, and you're going to blossom like a date palm, and you will see the destruction of the evildoers. Interesting. What do you think?
He uses a lot of repetition, I noticed. And like he's emphasizing again and again the correlation between man and his state and a plant and their state, depending on
Well,
soil.
yeah. You have to understand how he set it up. First, he explains it,
Mm-hmm.
and then he walks us through the actual words. And so in English, it sounds like he's just repeating himself. Whereas what he's doing in the Hebrew is first he explains it, and then he walks you through the words, and and he ends up like in the Hebrew, you're seeing him walk you through the words, and the words match into what he said.
Right. I wasn't meaning like I don't mean repetition like you use that in the sense of somebody who's saying nothing. Not that kind of repetition.
Yeah. No,
it seemed like he was emphasizing points, and
he is. The second part way through though, he's really emphasizing how, and it's kind of impossible for me to like really point it out.
I feel like I've heard elements of this before. I feel like I've heard it other places. I'm pretty sure I've heard it discussed here and read it other places. Some of the concepts.
Yeah,
I noticed he brought house back in as bite rather than the abode. A couple of times.
Yeah. So the word house, I mean, that's another thing. Like in the English, I don't think this is the thing for me. Like it's not like I'm so great in Hebrew. Like my Hebrew isn't great, but like I can see how he's using certain words to have different concepts, which when you translate to English, it's really hard.
When I first asked about it, and you had sort of mentioned a house, like an abode, a place where you live, and I was thinking that's interesting because I would have thought in a simple sense, you would immediately go to the word for house. And what went through my mind at that point was, isn't it interesting because you look at so many, I would look at so many Christian churches who have taken like names like Bethel, House of God, and things like that. But where he's pointing to the significance of, I almost want to say he's pointing something that's holy in the way he's holding it. And he doesn't go there. So then when he went back around and he mentioned it, I was like, okay, so he started out with an abode. You mentioned that it was kind of like a shepherd's, like it's like the natural landscape in which you're planted, that place that's where our struggle happens. And he starts from talking at that point. So then my mind simply, I almost asked a question at a couple of spots because I thought, that was one of them that stuck with me just because I know the word. And I did see words that I know, but not well enough to really comment on it. But I thought, okay, if he has bothered to mention it in the other context, there's a reason he dropped that in there. It's serving some purpose. That, what was the first word with the N?
Nave.
Yeah, that Nave was doing something different. So then I start to get curious and I think, what is he wanting me to hear here? What is he wanting me to see and learn? What am I supposed to know?
By he, do you mean
the explainer, the
Malbim, the commentary?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the word bite he uses. I mean, so the scripture itself uses neve and uses bite, right? And neve, so bite doesn't always have the positive, kind of like, you know how
We talked
when
about this yesterday in one of the voice chats.
mm,
And somebody was using home as an example. And I have on my wall a saying, like just a little square. I saw it had it in French. How does it go? Maison. Oh shoot, I'm going to forget it. But it's basically one of those sayings that points out the positive of what a home is or can be. But we were discussing positive negatives. And so we were saying just because we use the same word in a conversation with each other doesn't mean that the framework is the same. It doesn't mean that the context is the same. It doesn't mean that we all instinctively, in that first moment of hearing it, hear the same meaning in the ways that our memory works on things. So that had me wondering, because I was like, oh, I just watched this sort of thing yesterday, and the word abide came up too. So I was like, that's interesting.
oh, abide and abode. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah, I'm wondering like how many places in the Bible the word neve shows up. Let's see if I can look at this up.
well, again, and just thinking in those terms, how are those words alike? It's got a closer it's closer to what our word home should be, in the sense that this is a place of significance where you grow, you know, like it implies a relationship and an action within a relationship. Whereas a building, any building, may or may not have that same effect on you. But if I use the word abode, I think there's that sense of dwelling there. It's where you're planted. It's where you're, you know. And I was thinking when you were talking about what he was saying about pulling the reed and the plants that you can and cannot transplant.
mhm.
Why? Because I could hear elements of sometimes it's the soil that creates either the impetus or the need or whatever to move. And sometimes it's for the challenge, and sometimes you can or can't do it because the plant itself doesn't have, like maybe the root's not deep or it's too deep that you can't pull it, or it's not deep enough that it would implant into the new place and then, you know, continue, like take root to create a strong enough support for the plant. And he's using all of these in the context of relationship with God. You know, it was really, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at Strong's. So
Yeah.
it says the word navet primarily refers to are you guys seeing this? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Um, um, refers to a dwelling place or habitation, is often used to describe a place of rest or a home, particularly in the context of pastoral settings. The term can also imply a sense of beauty and tranquility, often associated with the dwelling places of shepherds or the abodes of the righteous. In ancient Israelite culture, the concept of a naveh was closely tied to the pastoral lifestyle. Shepherds would lead their flocks to green pastures, which were considered ideal dwelling places due to their provision and safety. The imagery of a naveh often evokes a sense of peace and divine provision, reflecting the agrarian society's dependence on the land and God's blessings for sustenance and security.
Yeah.
It shows up how many times in the Bible? Does it say how many times it shows up? 35 times. Yeah. So there you go. Hey, Connie. I like that abode sounds like abide. Well, I think they're related, those two words, but I'm not sure.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Different forms.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
do you find that interesting in the sense of how much it was talking about, the short life of, that God may remove an evil person sooner, or he may remove somebody depending on circumstance, so that they have a better chance at a better life.
Well, I think he was explaining why, like, in this chapter, there's all the different, like it talks about reeds and stuff like that, right? So, I thought, it makes sense in the words, like, yeah, this is my first time really going through, Job, like, in this detail. And when I read the introduction, he seems to be like making a lot of promises that I wasn't sure he was going to deliver on. And I'm not going to say he already delivered, but he seems to be delivering much better than I thought he would. But at the same time, it's the Malbim. The Malbim is known for being, like, he's my favorite commentary on Nach, which only girls think.
I was waiting for that. Yeah.
Okay. Unless somebody has something they want to talk about, I think. What time is it? 1:00 where you are?
Probably. 1:17. Yeah, I have physio at 9:30. So.
Okay. Yeah, I should get to bed too.
It's good to have. I have to say I really enjoyed watching the Hebrew go past and knowing that I tracked probably more than half of the time, and definitely a lot more than I had anticipated. So I have no idea what the words mean for most of them, but I'm following.
Were you following along when I was reading in the Malbim without the?
Yeah,
I think you're talking about the scripture.
Better if you were reading just a tad slower, but that wouldn't have been good. It was good that you read it at a proper pace.
So yeah, the Malbim writes in actually a rather late stage. Modern Hebrew. It's not even rabbinic Hebrew. It's almost modern Hebrew, which is distinctly like different from biblical Hebrew. But yeah.
Like I recognize some of the prefixes and
yeah, he uses adjectives and stuff a lot more than they're used in biblical Hebrew. Like he was like talking about chofshiim, right? Like bechira chofshii, which means free will. Like that's a very modern word to use. Yeah.
The Hebrew or free will or both?
Well, no, the way he was saying free will, like it was like in Hebrew, you don't really use adjectives. I wonder if it might be a little bit of his because I believe the Malbim spoke German. I
Mm.
think it might be a little bit like here. So this Hahana Haga Ishit Ha-Ishit, like this is like you would this is obviously not biblical Hebrew.
See, and I'm mostly not getting yet into a ton of biblical Hebrew. I'm just huddling around in whatever I can find that people are saying is biblical Hebrew, or Duolingo, which is totally not.
So to explain, the word Hanhaga means so Noheg means to drive, or Hanhaga means behavior. Ish means man. Ish-i means personal. It's an adjective. So
Okay.
So the same thing could have been said, and in biblical Hebrew would have been said Hanhagat Ha'ish, right? This whole thing in biblical Hebrew, I would say, would probably have been Hanhagat Ha'ish, which would be smichut. It would be a construct form, but instead of using construct form, he's conjugating ish-i, man-like, as an adjective, and so he's making it female because Hanhaga is female.
Match that, yeah.
And so like you would never, I like, this is very modern Hebrew. This is not biblical Hebrew. Yeah.
I'll get there. I will actually get there.
You are spending a lot of time learning Hebrew.
Hopefully it's going better than how long I've been learning guitar. Hate to say. But yeah.
Hey, and then you could become a Hebrew tutor.
Oh, ouch. Yeah, right. Is this like the well, you're not deaf, you're hearing, but if you only teach hearing people about how to sign for hearing people, it might be okay.
Well, actually, I mean, you also know sign language. I'm surprised you don't do kind of that. You know,
because of the rule I just stated, that technically, for proper instruction, deaf people should teach their own language to anybody else. There's the rules of, this is a hard and fast rule, except for the category we call, and then there's life, which means sometimes, which is why I broke a ton of rules and invented 1,000 things, teaching Jacob how to sign way better than I'm doing at the moment, because he's so fast now. He's around deaf people all the time, and got smiled at for it because I was getting through. So yeah.
Hey, you got it done. Okay.
You're yawning.
I'm going to put people to bed. I'm going to use host's prerogative to put the Reverend Parcells to bed, because he does need to get up in the morning.
Sorry, Reverend. Thank you.
But before he goes, I have a question. Let's say, God forbid, that I were to burn somebody at the stake for not being a Trinitarian, and I did not repent of that. Is that a salvation issue?
Sometimes Jacob takes that devil's advocate thing too far.
There a proverb that says something like, "Don't answer a fool according to his folly."
But there's a proverb that says, "Answer a fool according to his folly."
There is. Exactly right. And I'm going to leave it to you guys to determine, which of those was applicable in this situation as I go. So, But anyhow, good.
Thank
It was
you,
good
Reverend.
to good to
Thank
chat
you.
with you all.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Good night.
The